Welcome back to my channel today, the Midlands Outdoors, back with the Black Country History Vlogs, talking about the Halesowen button making, James Grove and Sons Limited. Got an old history book here to show you, some very old buttons and much more. Let's get into the video.
Established in 1857, James Grove has been manufacturing buttons for over 150 years, from making buttons in his hotel to a manufactured business in Halesowen. At that time, buttons were either made from horn or hoof. Many were compression molded with crests, either fancy or military insignia. Interestingly, company archives suggest that both Confederate and Unionist sides chose to have their buttons made by James Grove during the American Civil War. The company was incorporated as a private limited company on the 11th of January 1917 and the business lasted until 2012. The Grove family dates back many years. The original Grove family house still remains today as a pub at the top of Alexandra Road.
So right, got a few things to show you in the video today. This is the history of the button trade in Halesowen book. My granddad gave me this quite a while ago. It tells you about the Bloomfield Works in here. We've got some pictures of the original Grove family as well, so we'll come back to this in a little while. But let's actually start the video off by going back to the original Grove family house and going to take a look at it. So right, let's go for a little walk. It's not too far to actually get to this. So we've got to go up Alexandra Road and it's just right away to the top. So right, here we go, this is Alexandra Road. I think in the olden days this road used to be called Gibbet Lane, going all the way to the top. I did see it in some very old Ordnance Survey maps. As you can just see, Alexandra Road stretches right away to the top. I think in the olden days, way before all these houses were even here, all this was all farmers' fields stretching right away to the top. So it's really cool to look back on what this place really did look like. And I've got some photos of the original Grove family house. Alright, here we are. It's just really amazing to still see this is even still here. The original Grove family house. It is the Hunting Tree pub today. I think it actually used to be called the Button Factory at one point. So they changed the name. I think they was planning to knock this down, but it come under a new ownership and then it was turned back into a pub. That then closed and now it's been remodernised and revamped to the way it is today. It is nice to see them actually doing something with it, so it's not being demolished, because it really does date back a bit. You imagine in the 1800s when the original Grove family was operating the Bloomfield Works, lived into there. It must really tell a story inside. I would love to see what's on the upper levels. I bet it's some nice architecture if it hasn't been messed with. I mean, zooming in, you've got the patterns right away at the top. You've got those at the top roof. Picture on for you now so you can just see the original Grove family house back in the old days when it was being lived in. Much of all this here was all farmland and all fields right away at the back. You had a few trees. And you've got a picture somewhere here, I believe, when Groves' wife was actually standing there with a photo actually taken. How amazing is that, just to see that still here today, the Hunting Tree pub, which was the original Grove family house. And there we go, this is actually the back end to the pub. But you can just tell it was definitely an old house because it stretches really far to the back. But zooming in, if I show you, you can just see the nice style of patterns going right away to the top of the roof. And then once more, you've got some more patterns sticking right away up there. Isn't it nice to see just an old 1800 style house? But it is really dating back a bit. So it was really cool going back to the original James Grove house that is actually still there today, but it's been modernised into a pub. We've got this book to show you now. Let's get into it and take a look. So this was given to me. It's really interesting. I've had a few reads over this, and what's really cool about this book is if we just go through to the couple of first pages, you can just see, carefully open it, I don't want to rip a page. So right, this is the page that I want to show you. Founder of Messrs James Grove and Sons, Mr and Mrs James Grove. You've got James Grove on the corner there. Nice to see these photos, really dates back a bit. and you've got James Grove's wife right the way there. Just imagine when I went to that pub and showed you just the original Grove family house. These are the two people that lived in there when it was actually a house in the old days. This is really cool, zooming in to show you. I will show you what I mean a bit later on in the video. But that's actually a buffalo, and that used to be on the old factory office unit. Right away at the top of the offices used to be a brick version of that sticking right away out. So right, let's head over to the next page. Read just carefully open it. Once more, you've got the founder and successors of Messrs James Grove and Sons Limited, Bloomfield Works, Halesowen. Once more, you've got the buffalo sticking right away out. You've got GF Grove, 1866. You've got James Grove right around the middle, 1857, dating back a bit, as you can just see. If I just zoom in to show you so you can see the photo a bit more better, that's actually James Grove. You've got AJ Grove, 1870. Wow, that is really dating back, these photos are. You've got here H Grove, 1896. And then you've got AJ Grove Jr., 1894. So it's really cool to see that page. It says there, founded 1857. Right, let's head over to the next page. This is an interesting one. So this here, what you can just see is an aerial view of James Grove and Sons Limited, the Bloomfield Works, Halesowen. So you see there, it really does date back a bit. Zooming in to show you, this is actually a photo of what the old Bloomfield Works was like. You got chimney sticking right the way out. It really does stretch across. You've got the old office unit right the way there. You've got some more stuff. These are the old houses what I used to live in many years ago. I was living in the Starbridge Road when the Bloomfield Works was there. It used to be a set of houses. I used to live on the further end one, 128 Starbridge Road. That one I think was my nan's house, stretching all right at the back. You got the gardens. When James Grove and Sons was extended to the back, the factory units used to stretch right at the back of those gardens. I will show you some photos in a little while of that. But this is actually the original factory when it was in an old shape. You see all the chimney stack sticking right away up. Smoke coming out that chimney stack. And you've got all the fields right away at the back. And then you've got the football ground, which is still there today. Right, really cool to see that photo. Really old and rare photo. Let's move on to the next page. So right, this is actually the history of the button trade in Halesowen. It does say there was a tradition among the early workers in home buttons that they had been made as early as 1750 to 1760, and there is a very good evidence of this in Birmingham Street, as both buttons and shanks were often found and dug out of the ground when gardening or when building was in construction. So there is more information here. It is within the writer's knowledge that William Harris, who died 1908, had a factory in this same street, 1840 to 1850. From that period, it was well known that Thomas Harris, brother of William, had a large and well-equipped factory at a spring generally called The Drive, Halesowen. The buildings are good to this day, and at the present time are used as a perambulator manufactory. And it does say this place was the largest home button factory in the country. So it really does tell you quite a lot of interesting information about the button trade, dating to some really old things. So there's some interesting things here. It says every machine required in the trade was provided. Some were brought from Paris, and there are still remnants of them in the Bloomfield Works. It makes you wonder what happened to the old machines that was in the Bloomfield Works. Where did they even go to? Was they brought? Was they thrown in the skip? Who knows? It would be cool to see if those are still going around today. So there is more information here. James Grove, the founder of the Bloomfield Works, commenced work as an apprentice to Thomas Harris in order to learn metal die sinking and putting shades in various and complicated designs on the brass die centres used for making home buttons. So there is some more information here. The years 1870 to 1871 saw great improvement and extensions in the Bloomfield Works. Horn buttons were turned out fine quality in large quantities. The instalment of a French system of manufacture led to many visits to Paris, and also large trade in ladies' belt clasps were sold, he says there. After a good spell of this trade in these goods, the French tariff was raised by 50%. So there is quite a lot of information in this book. It is really interesting. You can just keep on reading it. It talks about buttons from abroad. It talks about various different things about the buffaloes, the horn button. And once more, you've got the buffalo right the way there. It does bring back memories when seeing that on the wall on the office unit. Then once more, you've got the old factory of what it would have looked like back in those days. Zooming in to show you, you've got a car coming out the gates. Imagine that's an old car saying James Grove on the side. And you've got the office unit right the way there. Really cool. So it's really cool to have this book in keeps today, because when my granddad was here, before he passed away, he always said to do a video on James Grove and Sons Limited and mention this book, because there is some really interesting stuff in here. Like I showed you the photos, just told you a bit of information, but it expands and expands onto the original Grove stuff to the Bloomfield Works, which is really interesting. Over to the next thing now. I brought these off eBay. Now I did a bit of scouring on the internet to see if I could actually find some James Grove and Sons buttons, and this is actually what I found. So right, it was really cool to actually buy these and receive them. You can just see them cool looking buttons. Zooming in to show you. It says on there Newcastle upon Tyne. Really cool pattern. Turn it around to show you. It does actually say, if I can try and get in a good angle, that way, it says Jas Grove and Sons, Halesowen. So it just cut it short, cut it Jas. And there is actually many buttons what I've actually got. And it's make you wonder if these were made in the Bloomfield Works. And really cool designs. So I have got some smaller buttons, but these ones don't have writing all around the back. You can just see they're very small in size, but really cool to look at. Once more, says Newcastle upon Tyne. It's make you wonder what these buttons were for. Were they for some sort of like police, postman? It's really interesting. If you know what they're possibly from, then drop it into the comments. But to see some buttons that are made from James Grove and Sons Limited in the Bloomfield Works is just really cool. How far do these buttons really date back? And to have these buttons in possession is awesome with the James Grove book, bits of history, and I've got more to show you. So it was really awesome seeing those buttons. I thought I might buy those because you might have been interested to see some James Grove and Sons buttons but potentially made within the Bloomfield Works. So right, in the other Black Country history vlogs, you may have heard me mention about my gardens on the Starbridge Road when I lived in 128. I showed you some pictures. I've actually got more to show you. These are photos taken in my nan's garden, and in the background you can actually see the Bloomfield Works, the button industry. So right, this is an interesting photo. This is the first one that I want to show you. It is my nan's garden in the early stage. I will show you some more photos. But you see on the side you've got the James Grove and Sons unit stretching right away at the back. That back bit there, if we go back to the button tray book, right, if we compare that there, this is actually the extension what I was on about earlier, what got added. So you can just see this bit here is that bit there. So you can just see those are still there in the old days. So they actually extended that bit more outways that way. So they had some gates coming out from the back there, leading right away into the factory. So I always remember my granddad coming down there when he used to plough out in the gardens, coming down on the shunter to say hello to me, to open the gates to let stuff in to come to the factory. So they actually extended it out that way in the more modern days. But you can just see right away there, zooming in, you've got that building there going right away up. We can actually see that in the photo which I've got now. So just appearing, you can just see the extension units going right away to the back. What's interesting, if I just zoom in, you can just see the top of that, what I just showed you, that is actually that in the photo. So if we just zoom back in, that what I just showed you is that. So it would have extended right away to the back and come all the way down. So that's actually what you can see right away there, sticking behind that. So that's actually remains of the Bloomfield Works in this photo, which you can still see, which have been demolished today. But it is really crazy to see that, and my nan's garden actually being that one there. So the garden's extended all the way out to come to the back where that bit is there. But it is really amazing just to see the extension units to the Bloomfield Works. I just really love looking at it because it really does date back a bit to see something what's not there to what is there now, a new industrial unit. But you can see right away in the background you've got the football ground lights. If I just re-zoom back in, you can actually see the football ground lights. Today those have actually been changed. Those are actually the old ones which were actually gifted to them. They actually changed these, I think, in the early 2000s, I believe. So those were actually changed from them. Looking out the window and zooming in, if I can zoom in for you, you might not be able to see them, but just right the way there is actually the modern day factory lights sticking right away out. You can actually see the new factory units sticking right away out today. So I thought I might have mentioned about those football ground lights, because you imagine the James Grove and Sons factory, they actually had that football ground purposely built. So there is actually plaques over the ground today saying James Grove. So right, zooming in, this is actually another photo of my nan's garden, a bit more closer. You can just see the back units and also right the way there, a bit more closer up. This was more of a modern one. You can see there, before we left the houses, this is what my nan's garden looked like. She had conifers planted to try and hide the factory units right away at the back. So it was really cool to see that, and then once more you can see the back end of the Bloomfield Works unit stretching all the way that way. It's crazy to see that was my nan's garden there before we left to the way it is then, where you can see all the factory units right away at the back. So it's really cool to see those photos of my nan's garden of where the factory units was right away at the back. Sadly, all that's not no longer there anymore. Let's jump into the next part of the video and go and show you where James Grove and Sons Limited was actually situated. So right, this is actually where James Grove and Sons Limited was actually situated, Bloomfield Street West. It was actually right away around that corner with an office block and also the main factory. So right, I always remember the days when the Bloomfield Works factory was actually there. At the back of it you had a row of houses stretching across this side here. My nan and my granddad Roy Taylor lived in one of these houses. We'll show you which one it actually was. But what's really cool about this, if we just come to the far back, you can actually just see there's actually a wall stretching right away through. If I zoom in to show you, that is actually the old Bloomfield Work wall going all the way to the back, stretching further on and going down there. There's the new factory what's there today, as you can just see it stretching right away to the back. But that's where the Bloomfield Works come, all the way from the back of there, then following the back wall, stretching further on the back corner. It's nice to see that there's actually an old wall stretching right away to the back, which is still there today. Just coming all the way down, this is actually where my nan lived. You can tell that these are really old by the architecture of the buildings. My nan lived at number 4, which is this one here. I always remember the gate going all the way through. But just a little bit further down, you might be able to see this. You can just see the factory workings right away to the back into the corner. So there's part of where the new factory was, the James Grove and Sons Limited part. You see, just these really do date back really old. You can imagine parts of 1800s. Wow. But let's journey away from that. It's really cool to see the old houses. I believe those were some of the old workers' houses for the Bloomfield Works, still there today. Let's roll around the corner and go and show you where the Bloomfield Works was and where I used to live. So right, here we are. This is where James Grove and Sons Limited was actually situated. Onto the corner here, this is where the main office block was. You can just see there is the old wall stretching all the way to the back. This is where the office unit was, stretching all the way up. I always remember it. There used to be an office unit with a couple of windows, a main entrance going all the way in, and a buffalo sign right away at the top. I always remember the buffalo sign for the James Grove Unlimited site. But this is actually where it was all situated. I'm doing a new modern business complex now. I think this is actually an extension to the MJ sections. But you can just imagine where the wall is. That's where the Bloomfield Works were situated, going all the way across. Zooming in to show you, you can just see right at the back, that's the old wharf, the James Grove and Sons Limited, the old Bloomfield Work factory, so it's still there today. So just about where we're standing right away now used to be a set of blue gates going all the way through. There's a set of blue gates there, opposite the garage which is on the corner, starting around about, now actually used to be the old houses. I used to live in 128 Starbridge Road, which is right around the corner. My nan's was that house there. You had a middle house, then you had our house. I'll show you where about it was. So the house I used to live in was right the way here. This is where I used to live. You wouldn't believe that this was actually houses and to there now, which is the new modern complex, but you can just see the MJ section site right away at the back. Well, how I know it's there, because many years ago you used to walk in and go straight into the house from here, so you see where it bends all the way around, where the old James Grove and Sons entrance would have gone in the old days. You had my house there, the gardens backed off to that corner there where the wall is, just to there. Then on this corner here would have been the main gates going all the way in. I can always tell you a story now, back in the days when I used to live there. I always remember my granddad, Roy Taylor, coming down on the shunter to always say hello to me in the gardens, because he used to play out quite a lot in those days when I was living in there. He used to come down on that shunter and say hello. I can remember quite a lot of stuff from the old days and the Bloomfield Works. I grew up living in an industrial site. Memories of actually going in there when my granddad took me. But what's interesting is just onto the corner here used to be an old sign, a car park sign. It was actually sticking up right around the corner. Let's go and show you that right now. But that's actually the grounds today, the modern site of where James Grove and Sons Limited was actually situated. So right, what I showed you in the video, this is actually the car parking sign which we salvaged when my mum walked past. She actually managed to get it. So one of the workers over there kindly gave it my mum to take home. So we've actually put it on the back of the shed, but it's really cool to see this. This is a private car park, mentioned about there. It's got James Grove and Sons Limited right away at the bottom. So this really does bring back memories as well for when the factory was actually there. I always remember seeing this car parking sign. So once more, it's nice to have something from the factory which we can always remember by. So it's really cool. So right, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget, if you're new, hit the subscribe button. If you've really enjoyed it, don't forget to smash that like button. And like I said, there'll be some videos every couple of Sundays also on bits of history. But yeah, I really do love talking about the Halesowen button trade. It really does date back a bit. It really jogs memories to when I lived on the Starbridge Road. Always seeing the old Bloomfield Works and my granddad working for the company for many years until he retired. But yeah, see you soon. The Middens Outdoors out.